I feel that it was that drawing and painting was like a retreat to get away from the loud noises and the over-energetic sisters and brothers I had, and draw and paint. I used to go in a corner, and as my mother tells me, I was like drawing ever since I was old enough to hold a pencil. Sid Frambaludi acquainted me with the Graphic Sketch Club. Now I'm about 13 years old, 14 years old, and he introduced me to, it's like a settlement. And then it was through this group that I was introduced to the Philadelphia Museum. I was too young for the WPA, of course. There was a student assistance, and I went to, let's see, 3 years to the what was then called the Philadelphia School of Industrial Arts. It was a highly disciplined art school. Then I went to the academy for 1 year, but by George, the war was catching up with me, and I took a job. I remember again as I finished 4 years of art school, you see, and you had to do something to in the war effort, so I took this job and as a draftsman. I drew pictures and I sent them to a magazine called Yank. Well, I was always up there in the front and where the action was. I didn't have to be, and sketching the war. I'd been discharged. We discovered the GI Bill. We could live fairly well on the $75 in those days, and painted. Of course, you had to enroll in an art school. I went to the New School first. Incidentally, I did study with Yasha Kuniyoshi, who was a very, very good artist, and he was really a very good teacher. But then I went to the Art Students League, studied with Will Barnett, Cameron Booth, and to Hans Hofmann. And that was, Hans Hofmann's, it was a very, Hans Hofmann's, I guess, golly, 1950, 51? And that was, it was a very, very interesting group, because at the time, there was in the class Larry Rivers, Wolf Kahn, Grace Hardigan used to pose, and there was Alan Capro. It was a very, very exciting group. Very exciting. My first show, let's see, with the Artist Gallery, it was at that show that Clement Greenberg and Meyer Shapiro selected me for this new talent show at Coots. And in that show, there were some very, very prominent artists. The then unknown Franz Kline, Larry Rivers, Esteban Vicente, Elaine De Kooning, my wife, Beatrice Rose. Well, and it was through that show that I met Kline, you see. Incidentally, this is, I think, the spring before the 9th Street show, okay? And it was a result of this meeting Kline, and then Marcarelli, that I was invited to the 9th Street show. We all know that as a result of that, the Stable Gallery followed. They continue this kind of tradition of like an annual, you know. Then I heard about the club, and then Kline and Macaroni told me where these guys were hanging out, and the Cedar Bar, which was an institution, a marvelous, marvelous place to hang out, and that's where I like to say I learned more about painting in the Cedar Street Bar and Grill than any art school I went to, because there was Gustin, Kirkham, De Kooning, Pollock would come in on Tuesday nights. There, Kline, De Kooning, and the guys told me to come to the club, which was another very, very interesting institution, and where we met Friday nights, and Philip Pavia was largely responsible for getting that together. Landis Luton was at the door, and there were panel discussions, very, very exciting. There was no manifesto. There was nothing written down. And I think that there was a feeling about painting that never existed in the American art world. A love for painting. And this is what I think, what was so important about that period. The intense excitement, camaraderie, and wonderful, that never existed. It kind of, and that was, to me, what was so important. The lack of commercialism that existed at the time. Nobody was selling paintings. My God, you know, if anybody sold a painting, it was an event. Well, of course, I can discuss, you know, certain, say, things that were happening, say, in the painting, the gestural, the directness. I think and this is what was so important. I think it had such an influence on me. I think in my work, if there's anything, is this directness and the energy, the paint surface, the handling of the paint. And I was a bug on structure, less interested in the imagery. My God, if you dared painted the figure, anything that resembled the figure, my God, as a Cedar Bar, they would just, God, you're like as though you had the plague or something. They wouldn't go near you. I mean, yeah, it was a very incredible. Like Philip Pavia, I think was very, very much like gung ho about pure abstract. It's got to be pure abstract. No imagery. No image. I don't think De Kooning ever stopped doing the women. There was always a painting. I think he always did the women. He always did a kind of imagery. It seems when I think he had a show of the women, then it made it kind of respectable. You see, to do the image. Then it was okay, you know. And so I think it got a little more diversified, you know. I didn't jump on the figure bandwagon. I still stayed within the structure of the painting. But I have to admit that my biggest influence, and I still think the greatest artist of the time was Arshile Gorky. What I liked about his work, and what I was trying to get in my work, was a sense of the architectonic, the structure, which I liked in Kline's work, and which I liked in the early De Koonings, like the Attic and Asheville. I mean, there was and of course, Gorky had in all his paintings. I think this is what the idea was prevailing about pure abstract. No storytelling. I had an artist in residency for 3 years at Princeton, New York School, that I find rather disturbing, is this insistence on the recognizable handwriting. Having found a unique image, like Kline, like Pollock, like Barney Newman, like Gottlieb, And having found a market for that, and I know that this bugged the hell out of Kline. I know it personally. I know it bugged the hell out of Pollock. It didn't bother Barney Newman or Gottlieb as much. I would be bored silly if a dealer told me, Joe, I think we can sell 100 of these. Come on, start producing. Which just bore me to tears. I couldn't do it. Because each painting has to be a new search. I received a grant for Egypt. I kept a notebook. I kept a sketchbook. I did a lot of drawings. What was important to me, I was absorbing. What I'm doing now, it seems like, I'm making references to what I absorbed, what I was seeing, what I was feeling, and that's the most important thing. I'm a little more involved in the iconography here. Now, I like the idea of the imagery. Abstract Expressionism had run its course. Now, I think everybody was feeling it, the effects of it. It was in the air. Everybody was feeling this. To move on, search, and I did. It wasn't until 1984 that I felt I was loosening up and the work was getting more painterly.
And the art critic of the New York Times, John Russell, wrote, Joe Stefanelli's paintings have a candid, upfront look, yet they have their secrets. Nothing is ever quite spelled out, and yet we seem to glimpse the human figure here and there, not to mention elements of landscape and vegetation. In any case, there's a natural largeness about what he does that makes us go along with it.
To make a composition right comes very naturally to me. I don't struggle too much for it. But what I would like now, I want to paint that unique picture. I want to paint that picture that's never been seen before, that's possible.